Hello everyone and welcome to Quality Old Games. Today we are making another tier list, this time from tier 3 units in Rome Total War. And there are quite a few of them. In addition to tier 2 units, this is the most numerous one. And the tier list is based on campaign setting. So in addition to the unit's battle prowess, also the cost, requirements, upkeep, as well as perhaps the faction's overall unit roster will affect the evaluation. And without further ado, let's begin. First we have Numidian Camel Riders. And I think these are kind of a bit of a gimmicky cavalry units. So yeah, they fare better against other cavalry units than other cavalry units. They get a bonus there, but they are a bit slower. And overall, I don't like them really much, so I think they get a place only in bad tier and actually in the lower end of that tier. Of course, Numidia would need to have some better cavalry, but I think Numidian cavalry is okay enough to make these guys rather obsolete. Then we have Armenian Cataphract archers, and as horse archers are already really good. I think these guys do deserve. They are Spartans. I mean, they kind of combine two units. They act as heavy cavalry in addition to being missile cavalry. And that's a really powerful combination, even though they lack the armor-piercing mace attacks of the real cataphracts or the heavy charge bonus of real cataphracts. But when they run out of ammunition, you can be certain that those guys will hold the line for quite a long time. Then we have Cavalry Auxilia. That can also be recruited before Marian reforms as well as after it. And, well, I don't know. Well, you can beat the campaign with this unit most likely. But at the same time, it's not that great. Of course, missile cavalry tends to be rather good in Rome Total War, but nah, it has too few missiles to be really, really great. Then we have Chariot archers. In tier 2, Britons got these already, and well, that's rather nice for them. I think in tier 3 units, these get perhaps phased out a bit because some other factions tend to get longer range missile cavalry, longer range missile units overall. So not on the top Spartan tier, but I think on the weaker side, still really good unit. Then we have Carthaginian elephants. I think they are decent enough. Of course, they are rather easy to spook because most factions have archers already, so fire ammo, as well as javelins from skirmisher warband, peltast, and so on. But if you can deliver a decent charge, you may be able to disrupt enemy formation and thus create enough havoc or a gap from which to punch through. So it has its utility, but of course it may run amok and harm your own units more than the enemy ones. So it requires looking after. Then we have Gothic cavalry. Some say that this is the best cavalry unit in the game. Perhaps I will agree that it's best melee cavalry unit of tier 3 in the game. And of course it's really nice that it comes with +3 experience in the campaign. So I think these guys might become Spartans, or perhaps they are already. Let's put them there. And then we have Greek cavalry. I actually made a mistake in tier 2 list and added these guys to that list as well. So these are actually tier 3 cavalry unit. I mean, they got thrust tier rating already in tier 2, and this higher tier list does not improve their situation at all. So just avoid. You have better tier 2 cavalry units, namely militia cavalry, for instance, for some factions. Or then if you are playing as Seleukits or some other faction that has better cavalry later on, just skip these. I mean, they are just horrible. Then we have long shield cavalry. I mean, they are decent enough cavalry, melee cavalry, but they don't actually shine in the gameplay. So I think they are, well, decent enough. And then we have barbarian noble cavalry. I think, I think they are at least better than these long shield cavalry, but I'm not sure if that's quite enough to land them a spot to the wannabe Spartans tier. I think they will be strongly decent, I guess. And Numidian cavalry, not Numidian cavalry, Nubian cavalry, I think this is. I mean, it's rather similar, in my opinion, to the long shield cavalry. Perhaps a bonus in desert, but nothing really great, if I recall correctly. Then we have Persian cavalry, actually long-range missile cavalry, and that's really great. Missile cavalry is really strong, especially archery missile cavalry. In Rome Total War overall, and these longer range missiles practically mean that the opponent loses one possible hard counter to this unit, because long-range archers can be utilized rather effectively against short-range missile cavalry, but these guys do have long-range missiles, so countering them becomes quite a bit hard. Then we have Pontic heavy cavalry. Basically, they are rather similar to this barbarian noble cavalry, except they have missiles. And I think that puts them into A tier, because they are decent enough in melee, but in addition each of them carries 6 javelins, and, well, that's quite a bonus for melee cavalry, if one thinks these first and foremost as melee cavalry with missiles, instead of missile cavalry with decent melee capabilities. Well, I don't know if they are, maybe they are same thing, but still, A tier here, or rather, wannabe Spartans tier. Then we have Scythian noble archers, I think rather similar to Persian cavalry. Long-range missiles, decent armor, really nice unit. Then we have Scythian noble women. The downside is that the unit size is smaller, so they don't pack quite the punch as these noble horse archers. However, they have fast horses, or they move fast, so they should be able to outrun light cavalry. So basically, light cavalry could be one counter for missile cavalry, but at least these guys will be able to outrun them. Then we have Scythian nobles. I mean, they are rather similar to those mercenary Sarmatian cavalry or something like that. I don't really like them. They lack the shield, so they are rather vulnerable to missiles. Of course, they, as a heavy cavalry, pack a punch. But, I mean, compared to these two, I don't really see them that good. So they are decent. And then we have Seleukid elephants. Practically the same applies to them as to Carthaginian elephants, except these guys are a bit worse, and thus they are only slightly decent. Let's put it that way. And then we have heavy chariots. I mean, these do counter cavalry rather nicely. They scare infantry. I think they deserve a place in S tier as well. And of course, one of the only cavalry units Britons can have in addition to barbarian cavalry. So they do really need these to be effective. Then we are moving to infantry units. First we have armored hoplites. I think they are one of the best units in the entire game, so most definitely S tier. I'm not sure where here exactly. Let's put them there. I mean, only tier 3 unit. One of the... Well, it's easy to recruit. It's not that expensive. It can hold its own under missile fire. It can beat almost anything but the most elite units and so on. So it's really, really solid unit. Practically the unit around which Greek cities' armies must be built if you want to do well. So that's the must unit for Greek cities. Then we have a bit of a gimmicky unit, namely Berserkers. I mean, they are of course S tier if you are going against, for instance, melee infantry only that cannot throw any missiles. They are completely trash if you are going against archery units, because most likely they will be shot down before they can even reach the archers. Against cavalry, well, they can do something, so they are kind of a situational unit. And of course, when they start to berserk, you cannot control them anymore. But I think they are, in some instances, rather funny unit. And of course, putting them against the Eastern infantry is just great way to spend time. So even though they are situational, I think they are wannabe Spartans. Perhaps not the strongest wannabe Spartans, but wannabe Spartans still. Then we have Bull Warriors, actually having 2 hit points. That's really great. And actually, Spanish roster is mostly trash, so Spain will need these. Though, in tests, these guys are really expensive. They take 2 turns to train, so those are big minuses for them, but still they are the infantry unit that Spain must use if they are to succeed in something. So, yeah, and you can get them from a temple, so some other bonuses as well as the ability to train these units. But they even struggle against chosen swordsmen, which are almost half their price. So, yeah, that puts them on the weaker side of the wannabe Spartans. Then we have chosen swordsmen, kind of the basic barbarian elite infantry unit. With Warcry, they can really pack a punch. Of course, their morale might be on the weaker side, so they can be frightened surprisingly easy. So I'm just wondering, well, perhaps they can be made Spartans, or we can make Spartans out of these guys yet. Then we have Desert Axemen. Yeah, decent enough infantry, nothing to write home about, but not really bad either. So let's put them somewhere around here. There is often a misconception that these guys do have armor-piercing attacks. They don't have armor-piercing. They have rather high attack value, but that's it. I think it's the Desert Cavalry that has armor-piercing attacks, and it looks like the riders are these guys. They only have horses, but yeah, these guys don't have armor-piercing. Then we have Druids. They are kind of a situational unit. They can bolster morale, and they can hold their own for a while in battle, but not really that good in battle. I'm not sure. In one army, perhaps 1 unit of these at most, but if I had to make a choice whether to have one of these, or 1 additional chosen swordsman, or 1 additional Forester Warband, I think I would go for chosen swordsmen or Forester Warbands. Then we have early legionary cohort. I mean, this is tough one. I just love playing with Romans, and you could call I'm a bit biased for Romans. So, I mean, every Roman infantry, in my opinion, is really solid all around. Because of the armor-piercing pillar, they have high morale, they can hold the line for quite a while, they are good at siege assaults on the walls, they can beat infantry with the swords quite well, excepting perhaps the most elite ones. So, I mean, and of course then there is the Marian reforms that you need to wait for a while for these guys. So I'm kind of, should they be wannabe Spartans or decent? Well, I will be biased and put them into wannabe Spartans. Then we have heavy spearmen. I mean, they are kind of equivalent to hoplites, but hoplites are tier 2 unit. So, I mean, yeah, decent enough, especially for Armenia, which doesn't have that great infantry roster. Then we have Libyan spearmen. Yeah, I mean, yeah, just avoid these guys. They may have a slight role against enemy cavalry, but versus infantry, they are bad, and versus cavalry, they are not good. They are only decent in that small niche. So, of course, Carthage has a problem that its roster is rather bad until tier 4, but still, I don't think Libyan spearmen are a solution for one to go. Then we have first gladiator unit, Miller gladiators. I don't like gladiator units. Perhaps I would recruit them in some cases if I only have arena in a city and I'm expecting an attack and I don't have any barracks or stables or ranges and so on, so I just need to get some units fast. Then perhaps gladiators. And these Murmillo ones are not even the best gladiators, so yeah, I don't think they are really worth having. So just one should avoid. Perhaps those Libyan spearmen should be above these because, well, Carthage doesn't have anything better at this point. Then we have Knight Riders. I think really nice unit. They spook enemies or frighten enemies. They move a bit faster than other infantry, so they can be used to chase down enemy units. So kind of a special unit and rather good at that. I think they deserve a place in the wannabe Spartans. Perhaps let's put them above the Romans, as I was not fully certain about them. Then we have phalanx pikemen. Most definitely way above heavy spearmen. They can take on elephants rather easily. I think they are at least very decent unit, but not perhaps quite on the wannabe Spartans tier, because they have small shields, they are vulnerable to missiles. Of course, the unit size is 1.5 of that of other phalanx units, but for instance, armored hoplites will chop these down quite easily. I'm not sure if chosen swordsmen will beat this. I guess they will, as well as legionary cohort, especially, or early legionaries, especially if they can get 2 pillar volleys off. So, yeah, I think I will leave them in the top spot on decent tier. Then we have Pontus phalanx pikemen. The unit size is only 2/3 of those other phalanx pikemen, even though the stats are a bit higher, but I think somewhere around here. Lower than these, but still decent enough unit because of the long pikes. Then we have Principes. Primarian units, I think pretty much the same applies to this as to the early legionary cohort. The cohort has a bit better stats, but this unit can be recruited quite a bit earlier. So I think because of this, I will put them into a bit higher than early legionary cohort. Then we have some Knight Gladiators. I don't like Gladiators, but this is the best Gladiator unit there is. So it can hold its own against Infantry for a while and even beat weaker ones, but still training takes 2 turns. And yeah, I don't like Gladiators. I guess I said it already about 5 times. So let's leave it at that. Then we have Scutari, another infantry unit of Spain for tier 3. They have one benefit over Bull Warriors, or actually 2. They take only 1 turn to build and they cost way less. At the same time, they are just horrible in battle compared to Bull Warriors. Some of you viewers compared them to Hastati, which is actually tier 2 unit. And you need to build the whole barracks building chain to tier 3 to actually get these, because Iberian infantry is rather useless. You don't want to get those guys. And you don't want to waste some, say, 10 turns, a bit less in the game, to get these guys, but you want to get those Bull Warriors. Of course, in some instances when you have conquered the city and you don't have your own temple there, then you may need to train these guys, but yeah. I was planning on putting them into just avoid tier, but I guess in conquered cities making them make sense, so they are just bad. Then we have another gladiator unit, Spear Gladiator. I think we should avoid them. And then we have Chosen Axemen, and I think they are quite solid A tier. I think they suffer from the same problem as Berserkers, because enemy missile units, they don't have shields, they don't have armor, so enemy missile units just shred through them. Of course, when you can get them into melee, especially with Warcry, they can cause some problems to the most elite units. For instance, Urban cohorts or Spartan hoplites, if you can flank them or so on. So they really pack a punch. And because of that, they are wannabe Spartans. But at the same time, they are a bit situational unit. You cannot make your front line out of these guys because, well, if the enemy has, for instance, phalanx units, these guys most likely are in trouble. If the enemy has missile units, these guys are in trouble. So they work most efficiently if the enemy is already engaged and you can attack rank rear or flank. So apparently rear and flank put together makes rank. So we move to missile units then, and first we have Archer Auxilia. And I just love Archer Auxilia because, well, I love playing as Romans and this is long-range missile unit. So my armies in the late game or in post-Marian era often has perhaps 4 or 5 of these units. So I will put them into solid wannabe Spartans tier. Let's put them here. Yeah, they take 1 turn to build, long range, decent enough damage. They cannot hold their own against enemy cavalry charges or heavy cavalry charges, or if the enemy infantry, heavy infantry gets to these, then they will rout. But if protected, they will deliver what they are expected to deliver, and that's not... The expectations are not that high, but they will deliver. Then we have just plain archers. Quite a few factions have these in tier 3. Then again, some factions have archers already at tier 2. So that's kind of a minus for them. And because of that, I think they get placed only in at the end of the wannabe Spartans tier. I think overall, longer range missiles, meaning archers, slingers, missile cavalry, especially with archers, are really good compared to short range missile units, for instance, skirmishers and so on. And because of that, these guys get perhaps 2 or 3 volleys off before those skirmishers can actually engage these. And in my opinion, that makes archers always worth having. If you can outrange the enemy, you are, at least in my opinion, always in the battle at advantage, because you can kind of control it. If the enemy doesn't want to be staying peppered with missiles, they need to engage, and then you have defenders advantage. And well, if the enemy doesn't want to engage, then you can inflict casualties with your archers. Simple as that. So yeah, I like archers. Then we have ballistas. I don't really like ballistas in this game, because they slow down armies, they don't do that much damage, and in battles they don't inflict that many casualties. But interestingly, barbarians can get their ballistas before Romans, so that's quite weird, but because Romans get it at tier 4, and for Roman ballistas I would put just avoid, so I guess it's one level earlier, or 1 tier earlier, I guess these guys can get placed in bad tier. Another missile unit, I don't think there are any differences between these two except name, so these are Egyptian bowmen. And another unit over there, we have Roman archers, once again, same unit, pretty much. Then we have slingers. They are actually worse than archers. They have a bit lower range, or shorter range, and additionally they tend to deal a bit less damage, and they cannot fire at arc, so I have hit quite a few of my own units in the back with slingers if they have been positioned wrongly behind my infantry troops. So that kind of makes them a bit less tactically flexible than archery units, and that's why they are only decently decent. Then we have onagers. I think once again barbarians are doing it before Romans, and actually I think even before other Hellenistic or before Hellenistic factions, Greece, Macedon and so on. So I guess bad, and I like onagers more than ballistas, so let's put them there. Then we have 2 missile units left. Chosen Archer Warband. I think they are just great missile unit. Of course they are rather expensive, but well armored, take only 1 turn to train. I mean, these guys do give the faction that have them quite an advantage at this point of the game, if the other factions don't have tier 4 units available already. So these will just dominate the battlefield, because they can take some punishment, they can dish it out rather well. So I think they are at least weak Spartans, if not the tippity top of that tier. And pretty much the same goes for Forester Warbands. Long-range missiles, they have spears, and often it's the enemy cavalry that archers must be wary of. So these guys can defend themselves quite well against especially light cavalry. However, they are rather expensive, and at the same time they take 2 turns to build or train. And because of that, I think they only deserve a place in the wannabe Spartans tier. So, I guess that's my tier list for tier 3 units for Rome Total War in the campaign setting. So, do you agree or disagree? Did I miss something? Or did I have something too much in this tier list? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Oh, and by the way, you can find this tier list in Tier Maker. So tier 3 units in Rome Total War or something like that. I try to remember to put all of these tier lists to public if you want to make your own tier list from tier 3 units, for instance, in Rome Total War. And if you like the content, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel And feel free to post comments otherwise as well. For instance, you can suggest tier lists that you want to see later on. Have a great rest of the day. Quality Old Games out.